Welcome again to the episodic novel, The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha. The title of this post is, What's a Nice Guy Like the Buddha Doing in a Place Like This? It's one of those chapters that I've written that you don't really need to read to follow the story chronologically, but is really helpful in terms of either understanding the background of a character or some philosophical or esoteric or spiritual idea that might help make sense of all this, or I suppose make it even more mind-boggling. Regardless, I call this one Top Secret Esoteric Background Number 1. Recently, someone asked me whether Sid wakes up as the Buddha or finds the Buddha and wakes him up. It's complicated. In part because, like Sid himself, when this story seems the most serious, it's often being at least a little satirical. And when it seems the most satirical, it's actually often has some wisdom baked in. Satire can be like that. In addition to my many years walking the wild side of spiritual practices, I like to think that, in some ways, this story also reflects some of the first novels I read, particularly the brilliant 60s classic Catch-22, which uses satire to deliver truths about war, and does so as well as equally brilliant, but more full-on dramatic novels like All Quiet on the Western Front. While presented as fiction, The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha is, basically, a true story, or at least as true as a lot of spiritual books that are considered gospel, because the truth is often more amusing, irreverent, profound, and wise than you would imagine. Take a guy like the Buddha, or a woman like Mother Mary. They didn't use up their individual spiritual power all in one lifetime. They came and went under different guises in multiple lifetimes. The Tibetans keep it simple. They just put a new number at the end of each Dalai Lama's name. The current one is a wonderful guy named Tenzin Gyatso, who's considered the 14th Dalai Lama. So, instead of calling our hero Sid, we could call him something like Siddhartha Gautama version 15.1.2, but who's counting? Fortunately for Sid, his Buddha nature hadn't crystallized until he was in his 60s, instead of when he was a kid. I can't think of a better word at the moment than crystallized. You see, the Buddha doesn't usually take on a lifetime start to finish. He gets in while the getting's good, and leaves when he's completed whatever he came here to do. Hey, it's complicated. I'm doing the best I can here. Anyway, a name like Siddhartha Gautama would have made Sid's life a little difficult on the school playground, and, these days, could easily get him kicked out of the country, even if he managed to get himself born here in the first place. Now, admittedly, when the Buddha first looked out from Sid's seizure-addled eyes, he wondered if he'd made a wrong turn somewhere out there in the etheric. The legendary awakened one usually found himself working within someone of more consequence than a fun-loving, irreverent, rapidly aging businessman with terminal cancer. But he quickly realized that Sid's wide-open mind, unbridled imagination, and easygoing willingness to put his subconscious at the service of any lost or found soul who needed a body made up for his spiritual lassitude and relatively ordinary existence. If anything, Sid's lack of preconceptions about the historical Buddha could make things easier since, as usual, the Buddha now wasn't the Buddha then. He'd come back to go forward and try to take some humans with him, who could then take others with them, who could take others with them. It was a great plan in theory. In fact, it was the original idea of the Bodhisattva thing, which seemed like an evolutionary slam dunk when he and some of his cohorts, on what I'd guess you call the cosmic creation team, dreamt it up. But they'd underestimated the power of the human proclivity to take everything personally, to celebrate their suffering instead of getting free of it, to live only in the present when there was so much fun going on in the past and future. Sure, the now had its moments, but it had proven to be kind of addictive. People kept on wanting to experience more and more of it. And, if that weren't bizarre enough, these humans had managed to use their high-powered, albeit twisted circular logic to get attached to the experience they called enlightenment. The people who went this route also found, to their dismay, that there was nothing they could do about the pain and suffering their fellow humans continued to inflict on each other. a phase of human evolution that was supposed to have ended centuries ago. The best tactics they could come up with were variations on praying for peace or meditating on it, practices which, while they at least temporarily cleared the etheric air around these conflicts, practically speaking, didn't do a whole lot to end them. For centuries, the Buddha had kept just shrugging his shoulders and throwing himself back into the fray to see if he could get even maybe a few of these humans to, as he put it, lighten the fuck up. This time, he was ready to try something different. Clearly, shocking people, waking them up, teaching them new lessons, showing them new practices, flooding their beings with compassion, or changing their everyday behavior or experiences just weren't doing the trick. The revolutionary, or rather evolutionary insights that he would use this Sid guy to scatter to the winds would have to be revealed in glimpses so fleeting that people would barely realize they'd heard or seen them. And if nothing else, at least they wouldn't be left with 1,000 more pages of holier-than-thou gobbledygook to use as justifications for killing each other. However you looked at it, there was a lot of work to do, and not a whole lot of human time left in Sid's life to do it. Well, the Buddha thought, with a suspiciously Sid-like grin, what's the point of getting free of suffering if you don't know how to have fun? So let the games begin. Now I invite you to return to the story, wherever you left off. There's a link back to the table of contents so you can pick up where you left off. By the way, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this other perspective on spirituality, which Sid and the Buddha will continue to put light on and make light of as our series continues.